All right, welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. As we wrap up the year here, we wanted to help you, really fine-tune your emerging biotech's game plan.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to zero in on something that's super important. Chemistry, manufacturing, and controls, or
Yeah.
CMC for short.
Right.
It may not be the flashiest part of drug development,
Yeah.
but getting your CMC strategy right is absolutely critical.
No, absolutely. It's the backbone.
Yeah, so our roadmap today is this really great article called 10 CMC Questions for Emerging Biotech in 2025. We'll be taking each question and dissecting it. And not just like giving a surface level summary, but we really want to dig into like the why behind these questions and uncover, maybe some potential pitfalls that you might not have even considered.
Right. Some of the nuances.
Yeah, so buckle up
Yeah.
because some of these insights might just surprise you.
Yeah. Some of them are pretty interesting.
Yeah, so let's jump right in.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so the first question in this article is all about making sure you're hitting those crucial regulatory milestones.
Yeah.
So it asks, have we met our CMC regulatory milestones? It seems pretty straightforward, but with so much going on, it's really easy to let things slip through the cracks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot to keep track of when you're in that early stage, laser focused on research and development.
Right.
Yeah, it's so easy to let those regulatory deadlines just kind of sneak up on you.
Right.
And, miss them. And that can have a domino effect, cause delays down the line that can really impact, your whole timeline.
The article gives a great example of this.
Yeah.
It asks, did you submit sufficient CMC data to support your orphan drug designation?
Oh, yeah.
And, most biotechs would be thrilled to get that designation.
Honestly.
But if your CMC data isn't like really solid,
Right.
you could be in for, kind of a rude awakening later down the line.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's not even just about getting that designation. It's about maximizing the benefits that come with it, right?
Right.
Without really solid, comprehensive CMC data, you could hit all sorts of hurdles later on, even with that orphan drug status. It's
Right.
like thinking you've won the race, but you forgot to actually cross the finish line.
Right. So those early milestones, you're really building a strong foundation
Yeah,
for your entire development program.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about strategy. Question number 2 asks, is our regulatory strategy still relevant? Why is that so critical, especially, in today's environment?
Well, I mean, the regulatory landscape is constantly in flux, right? New guidelines come out, scientific understanding evolves, you have global events that can trigger, all these sudden shifts in priorities. So a company that's stuck in that, set it and forget it mindset with their regulatory strategy is, they're bound to run into some issues.
And the article actually brings up some pretty timely examples. Did recent FDA guidance on nitrosamines or ICHQ13 for continuous manufacturing impact your development strategy?
Yeah.
Nitrosamines have been a pretty major focus lately.
Oh, absolutely. Big one.
And continuous manufacturing is, really kind of gaining traction.
Yeah, for sure.
So how are those, impacting emerging biotechs?
Well, what I think is fascinating is how they seem like pretty different topics, right? But they actually both highlight the need for this like regulatory agility.
Yeah.
So, with nitrosamine regulations, you really need a deep understanding of your process to make sure that you have control of those. And with continuous manufacturing, often that means engaging with regulators, in these totally new ways.
Right.
So it's just a good reminder that, regulatory strategy isn't just about compliance. It's about proactively shaping your approach to align with, that evolving landscape, always changing.
Yeah. So how can emerging biotechs make sure that they're staying ahead of the curve? So, reading every new guideline that comes out seems like a full-time job in itself.
It's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
One approach I've seen successful companies use is building flexibility into their development plans.
Okay.
Think of it like, you're going on a road trip and you have all these different routes mapped out, right?
Yeah.
So, if construction blocks your main path,
Right.
you've got these alternatives ready to go.
Right. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So it's about anticipating those potential roadblocks
Yeah.
and having a plan B.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk data. Question number 3 asks, how robust is our data analytics approach? It's no secret that data is king in biotech, but it's not enough to just collect that data.
Right.
You need to know how to use it really effectively.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
this article really digs into this. It asks, are you leveraging advanced analytics to predict, things like batch failures?
Right.
And this gets right to the heart of, what modern quality management is all about,
Yeah.
right? It's shifting from, you know, just reactive problem solving to this more proactive risk mitigation,
Right.
thinking ahead.
And the example they use is really interesting. They talk about how companies can analyze stability data, in-process control data,
Mm-hmm.
and even batch release data to
Mm-hmm.
try to find, these trends. And then they can predict potential issues, before they even happen.
Right, yeah.
And that's
Yeah, what I find so fascinating about this is, the potential to really transform, like, the entire CMC landscape.
right.
So instead of just, waiting for these deviations or these failed batches,
Right.
imagine being able to identify, subtle signals in your data that point to a problem, weeks or even months in advance.
Right.
That's where the real power of data analytics lies.
It's like having a crystal ball
Yeah,
that can help you avoid costly mistakes and delays.
absolutely.
All right. So let's get ready for the big leagues here. Interactions with the FDA.
Yeah.
Question 4 asks, are we prepared for FDA interactions?
It's a big one.
Those interactions can be, I imagine, pretty nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah. They can definitely be nerve-wracking, but they are an absolutely crucial part of the drug development process.
Right.
And, like the article points out, thorough preparation is really key to avoiding, these costly setbacks.
Right.
You've got to be ready.
So the article recommends conducting, and I thought it was brilliant, mock FDA reviews of your CMC submission.
Oh, yeah.
What a great idea to kind of get ahead of any potential issues.
It's like a dress rehearsal before opening night, right?
Right.
You get to practice your presentation, identify any weak points,
Right.
and make sure everything is just polished and totally ready for the spotlight.
And what I find so fascinating is that so many companies overlook this step.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
Yeah. They might have amazing science,
Right.
but if they can't effectively communicate it to the FDA, they're setting themselves up for, potential disappointment.
Absolutely.
So now this next question might sound a little bit technical,
Okay.
but it's super crucial for ensuring a smooth, regulatory journey.
Yeah.
Question 5 asks, have we conducted comprehensive gap assessments?
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit, when I first read this, I wasn't entirely sure what a gap assessment even was.
So a gap assessment is essentially a really systematic review of your entire CMC program, right?
Mhm.
And you're looking for any missing information, any, unresolved questions,
Okay.
or areas where your documentation just doesn't quite meet those regulatory requirements.
Right.
So think of it like, a very meticulous inspection before you head out on this long voyage, right?
Right.
You want to make sure there are no leaks in the hull
Yeah.
before you set sail.
Before you set sail, yeah. And the article actually highlights a key area
Yeah.
where these gaps often appear. Are there critical gaps in your analytical method validation?
Mm-hmm.
What makes method validation so tricky?
Well, CMC is all about, precision and accuracy, right?
Right.
The FDA really needs to be totally confident that the methods you are using to test your drug are reliable and meet their standards, which are really stringent.
Right.
And even a tiny gap in your validation documentation can just raise, all sorts of red flags.
Right.
Lead to all sorts of delays.
So it's not just about having the good science.
Yeah.
It's about having the data to back it up
Absolutely.
and presenting it in a way that, satisfies the FDA.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift our focus to risk management.
Yep.
Question number 6 asks, is our risk management strategy up to date?
Mm-hmm.
And why is this so important,
Mm-hmm.
especially, given all the recent events that have happened globally?
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen how fragile global supply chains can be, right? You've got the pandemic, geopolitical instability, even, natural disasters.
Right.
All these things can disrupt the flow of materials and ingredients. So a really robust risk management strategy is no longer, a nice to have.
Right.
It's a necessity.
Right. It's table stakes.
Exactly.
And the article gives a really relevant example. Did you reassess your supply chain resilience? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we can't just assume that, things are going to continue the way they always have.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
What are some really concrete steps that emerging biotechs can take to strengthen their supply chain resilience?
Well, it starts with mapping out your entire supply chain.
Okay.
Identify those critical dependencies
Yeah.
and then evaluate potential points of failure.
Right.
And then, you develop mitigation strategies. This could involve diversifying your supplier base, building up safety stock of, those really critical materials, or even exploring alternative manufacturing locations.
Right. So it's about being proactive
Yeah.
and having those contingency plans in place.
Absolutely.
Better to be over-prepared than caught off guard.
Exactly. And what I find particularly interesting about this is how, risk management is evolving beyond just physical supply chains, right?
Okay.
We're now seeing companies, assess risks related to things like data security, regulatory changes, even talent acquisition.
Wow.
It's about taking this really holistic view of potential threats
Right.
and developing strategies to mitigate them, kind of across the board.
So like it's risk management 2.0.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back in just a minute and continue our deep dive.
Sounds good.
All right. So moving on to question number 7. We're kind of diving into the world of quality assurance. The article asks, how effective is our quality assurance? QA compliance. I know compliance can sometimes feel like a chore, but it really is the backbone of a successful CMC program.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you say so?
QA compliance, it's not just about checking boxes, right? It's about making sure your product is safe for patients.
Right.
Building trust in your product and demonstrating to regulators that you have these really strong systems in place to produce, a high-quality drug consistently.
Right. And the article kind of puts it bluntly. Did your internal audits highlight deviations that could trigger an FDA Form 483? Now, I know our listeners are probably familiar with the dreaded 483.
Right.
But for those who may be tuning in for the first time, can you explain what makes a 483 such a big deal?
So a 483 is basically a warning letter from the FDA.
Okay.
And it means that they found something during an inspection that suggests, you might be violating good manufacturing practices, GMP, and getting a 483, that can lead to delays. You have to spend a lot of money on remediation, and it can really damage a company's reputation.
Right. So those internal audits are really about finding those potential issues before the FDA does.
Absolutely. Get ahead of it.
Yeah. And so the article talks about, really addressing any issues that are identified during these audits and documenting those corrective and preventive actions, the KPAs.
Right.
So it really sounds like it's a continuous improvement process.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I think is really fascinating about this is that, a strong QA culture, it goes way beyond just fixing problems, right? It's about really fostering a mindset of proactive quality management across your entire organization.
Wow.
It's about creating an environment where everybody, from the scientists in the lab to the technicians out on the manufacturing floor, everybody feels empowered to identify potential issues and then, help come up with solutions.
It's about building the quality into every step.
Yeah.
Rather than just inspecting it in at the end.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's talk about something a little bit more, exciting innovation.
Yeah.
Question number 8 asks, are we utilizing cutting-edge CMC development practices? The biotech industry is always pushing the boundaries.
Always.
So how can emerging companies ensure that they're staying ahead of the curve when it comes to CMC?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
The article, it specifically mentions things like continuous manufacturing and process analytical technology as examples of, these cutting-edge practices, but it's not really just about, adopting the latest buzzword. It's about understanding how these new technologies can actually address the specific challenges that you're facing and enhance your overall CMC strategy.
It's about using the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I was actually reading about this small biotech company that was really struggling to scale up production of their cell therapy product.
Right.
And so they decided to implement continuous manufacturing techniques. And it really transformed their entire process.
Wow.
I mean, they were able to increase production capacity, reduce costs, and they actually improved the consistency of their product.
Yeah.
It was a total game changer for them.
That's a great example, and it really highlights, a key point, which is that continuous manufacturing isn't just for big pharma anymore.
Right.
Emerging biotechs are finding these, really creative ways to use these technologies to gain a competitive advantage. And then you've got PATE, with its real-time monitoring and control capabilities.
Right.
It allows companies to make really data-driven decisions throughout the whole manufacturing process, which leads to better quality, and fewer deviations.
So for those companies who might be hesitant to adopt these new technologies,
Yeah.
what would you say to encourage them to maybe take the leap?
I would say that, the whole drug development landscape is evolving so quickly. Companies that, stick with those outdated methods, they're really risking falling behind.
Right.
Embracing innovation in CMC isn't just about, staying trendy. It's about staying competitive.
Mhm.
And ultimately, it's about bringing those life-saving therapies to patients faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about the technology itself.
Yeah.
It's at the impact it can have
Right.
on people's lives.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and look at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 9 asks, how strong is our CMC development program?
Yeah.
And it seems like a pretty broad question,
Mm-hmm.
but it really gets to the heart of whether your CMC efforts are aligned with your overall goals.
Right. It's about making sure that every single element of your CMC program, from formulation development to stability testing, technology transfer, all of
Yeah.
that is really carefully planned
Mhm.
and executed. It's about building a really, really solid foundation that can support, your whole drug development journey.
Right.
From early research all the way to actually getting that drug, on the market.
Right, so from bench to bedside.
Exactly.
And the article really kind of hones in on stability data as a key indicator
Mhm.
of a strong CMC program.
Yeah.
It asks, is your stability data supporting your proposed shelf life?
Right.
So why is stability such a critical factor in CMC?
Well, stability is absolutely paramount because it directly impacts the safety and the effectiveness of the drug, right?
Right.
The FDA has to be totally confident that your product is going to remain stable, potent for that entire intended shelf life.
Right.
And that requires really rigorous stability testing
Right.
and really thorough data analysis.
It's not just about saying, oh, yeah, our drug's going to last for 2 years.
Right.
You have to have the data.
Yeah, you got to prove it.
Yeah, you got to prove it.
With data that meets, the FDA's standards. And what I find so fascinating about this is that, stability testing, it's not just a one and done kind of thing. It's an ongoing process
okay.
that requires, constant attention.
Right.
And, we're seeing these new analytical techniques emerging that can give us even more insight into, these degradation pathways and
Yeah.
help companies to develop, more robust formulations and figure out, better storage conditions.
So it's like this constant detective story.
Yeah, it is.
Of uncovering the secrets of how a drug changes over time.
Yeah,
And then finding ways to kind of preserve its quality.
exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to the final question in our deep dive here.
Okay.
Question number 10 asks, what are our CMC goals for the coming year?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this might seem like a pretty straightforward question,
Right.
but it's so easy to get caught up in, the day-to-day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
lose sight of the big picture.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, setting clear CMC goals is it's crucial
yeah.
for making sure that all your efforts are aligned with, your company's overall strategy.
Right.
It's about creating a roadmap that's going to guide all your CMC activities
Right.
and help you get where you need to be.
Achieve your goals.
Exactly.
The example given in the article is about scaling up manufacturing to support late-stage clinical trials,
Yeah.
which is a pretty common challenge, I imagine,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
for emerging biotech companies as they transition from, early-stage research
Right.
to that larger-scale development.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a great example, and it highlights, the importance of anticipating those future needs
Right.
and planning accordingly.
Yeah.
Because, what works for a small-scale phase I trial
Right.
might not be suitable for, a large-scale phase 3 trial or commercial manufacturing.
Absolutely.
So it's critical to kind of think ahead
Yeah.
and build that flexibility
Yeah, be ready for any
into your program. So setting those CMC goals isn't just about, checking off boxes.
Oh, yeah.
It's really about that strategic planning and anticipating those future challenges.
Yeah.
And making sure that your program is a driving force behind your company's success.
Absolutely.
Precisely.
And what I find so fascinating is how, CMC goals, they're becoming more and more integrated with other aspects of drug development, right?
All right.
Like we're seeing companies setting goals now that are related to things like sustainability, patient access, even cost effectiveness.
Right.
It's this recognition that CMC isn't just a technical discipline.
Right.
It's a crucial part of this really holistic approach to drug development.
And it's all connected.
Yeah, it is.
It really is amazing how CMC has evolved from, just this behind-the-scenes necessity to this, dynamic, strategic element of drug development.
It's really become front and center, hasn't it? And it's only getting, I think, more and more interesting as we go forward. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible in CMC.
We've covered a lot of, really technical details today.
Yeah.
But what really strikes me is the impact that this all has, on patients.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, behind every vial, every tablet, there's this whole team of people, working so hard to make sure that medicine is safe, effective, and that it reaches the people who need it most.
Yeah, I mean, that's what gets me up every day,
Yeah.
Knowing that the work that we do in CMC, it's really about improving people's lives.
Right.
It's not just about molecules and processes, it's about making, a real difference in the world.
Absolutely. And so as we wrap up this deep dive into the 10 CMC questions for emerging biotech in 2025.
Yeah.
What's that one key takeaway you want our listeners to, really walk away with today?
I'd say it's this. CMC, it's not just a hurdle to clear.
Right.
It's really a foundation to build upon.
Mm-hmm.
And, by approaching CMC strategically, embracing innovation, fostering that culture of quality,
Right.
emerging biotechs can really set themselves up for success.
Yeah, I love that. It's
Yeah.
about seeing CMC as an opportunity, not an obstacle.
Exactly.
The article that we're talking about focuses on 2025.
Yeah.
But what are some of the trends beyond 2025 that you're watching? What's got you excited about the future of CMC?
One area I find, just incredibly fascinating is how CMC is intersecting with personalized medicine. Imagine a world where we can make medicines that are tailor-made for each individual patient based on their, specific needs, their genetic makeup.
Right.
CMC is going to be absolutely essential to making that vision a reality.
That's mind-blowing.
It
Going from, mass production to individual customization.
Yeah, what a shift.
It's a huge shift.
It is.
And it's not just personalized medicine.
Right.
There are also all these advancements in areas like bioprinting, artificial intelligence, even quantum computing, all of which have the potential to really revolutionize CMC.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It sounds like the future of CMC is going to be incredibly dynamic and innovative.
Oh, absolutely.
So for our listeners out there who are really leading the charge in emerging biotech, if you're looking for that practical roadmap to navigate the world of CMC, we really recommend checking out the source material for today. 10 CMC questions for emerging biotech in 2025.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
It's packed with insights that can help you, refine your strategy, prepare for the challenges, but also those opportunities that lie ahead.
It's a good one.
So we'll be back soon with another deep dive into some other fascinating corner of the biotech world.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Until then, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in CMC and beyond.
Absolutely.